All right, let's see. Let's see what is going on, guys. Thursday night. Thursday night is always a good night for us. Lots of guys coming on. All right. So, yeah, two guys on. We got four thumbs ups. All right. So, tonight we're talking stripers. We are talking stripers, and we're talking about why most people don't catch them 90% of the year. 90% of the time, people just can't catch them. We get this question quite a bit, and people were very surprised uh, why we're always on them, on some type of a white bass hybrid, aka wipers, depending on what state you're from, and the striper game, right? So the striper game it could be as complicated as you want to make it, and it could be as simple as you want to make it. Okay, so that's the cool thing about the striper game because we're not fishing like in a tournament, so you ain't gotta go all out like electronics. You ain't gotta go all out gear. Use what you gotta do. Well, you use what you got for the most part. I might want to upgrade a couple little things, but for the most part, the traditional uh, the traditional fishing stuff, that you already have, or you can get at your local stores, will be just fine. So, with that being said, this is only a couple 2 minutes in, so I usually like to start the videos off with just very generalized questions you might have, things, comments, concerns, channel related or not, striper or not, bass or not, and we kind of go from there. So before we really start, we give it a good 5-10 minutes, get the YouTube rolling, get other guys to come in, and we will go from there. Right. So this is Thursday night for the first time. Well, if this is your first time, this is Out of Work Outdoors. My name is Kong, and Tuesdays we talk about everything bass related, boats, kayaks, whatever kind of goes on that side goes. But on Thursday nights, it's all stripers, white basses, and hybrids. That's the reason why we even have this channel. So that's what we are focusing on tonight. I think tonight we're gonna even say we're gonna kind of break it off into uh, like every topic I'm gonna kind of cover. We're gonna say you're gonna do land based, and then we're gonna do like boat based or kayak based. Okay, so we'll definitely do that, and hopefully we could get some of you guys on with some better fishes here. So like I said, yeah. So cool. We got a couple thumbs ups. We got Mo swim bait slinger. Yeah, that guy. He knows his stuff too. So if you got questions that I don't answer fast enough, I'm sure he'll be in the comments just typing away too. He's pretty good, especially the whole glide bait things. If you're really trying to just target the big stripers and try to catch them a different way too, because I'm not gonna cover too much of the swim bait stuff because I'm still fairly new at it. But dang, it's all over social media. If you want to catch a big striper, you throw the glides. Basically, is what it is, and a lot of the big plastics. Just to give you the background on myself, uh, if you're throwing anything less than an 8 inch, I would say you're probably throwing a small bait for stripers. It's not unusual for a striper to eat something that's up to 14 inches. I've actually done it up in the Northwest where we used to fish up in Massachusetts. The ocean stripers that we target and pursue, they follow. There's this bait called herring. It looks like a baby tarpon. It's about this. It could go up to about that size, and we've caught them. We've actually snagged them, which is legal to do up there. And or you could catch them on sabiki rigs, or you catch them on a dip net, and then you throw them back out. And during the striper runs, you wanna hook up the biggest herring you got and chuck it back out there. And then a 14-inch herring. I mean, a 14-inch herring it's not only long, it's wide too. It's wider than my hand. Okay, so like a 24-inch striper will come and still smash it. And when you're rolling that in, you're thinking like, well, you think about this, right? A 14-inch big big bait, you're gonna think, well, it's got to be like a 30+ inch striper that'll eat this, and you get smashed on 24. I've even had like 18-inch stripers kind of just harass it. So it's not unusual for a striper, you know, smaller size to chase a big bait and try to swallow it. So don't be afraid of those big baits. But I think for the most part tonight we're going to cover the small stuff because I feel like those big baits, big glides, big live baits, that's kind of an advanced topic. We'll save that for another day. Maybe once everybody comes up to speed and watches all these little bait videos, then we'll definitely do that. Yeah, see, he's saying start like 12-inch glides, right? Yeah, line through trouts. Yeah, 50 pounds. Yeah, it ain't nothing for a striper. Long story short, stripers are the king. They're basically the king of the water. So there's stories that are circling around, even in my area where there's lakes that have big stripers in them. Stories of fishermen, bass fishermen. Now I can't verify these stories, but it's kind of a long tails and things like that. People are fishing for bass. They bring like a 2.5 pound bass to the boat quick, and you'll see a striper come up and smash that bass. And this is not a like I said, the story wasn't told directly from the horse's mouth to me. It's like a story that's been passed on and passed on. But incidences like that have happened. Now you think of a 2.5 pound largemouth, that's about a 16-inch bass. You know, it's about a 16-inch bass, and it ain't nothing for like a 37-inch striper to swallow that guy. Okay, so don't get too intimidated by a chuck in a big lure. Randy Wilson says, "What do you think about people who smoke cigarettes? Do you think the fish can tell? Do you?" A guy was telling me about smokers, people that get gas on their hands, and some bad difference. Yeah, about I think on isolated cases, I think it is a thing, but for the most part, like 99.5% of times, don't worry about it because you're talking about scent on a bait that can either attract or deter a fish from eating. I don't personally, I don't think that's relevant because I've fished. If you're fishing for fun, there could be like a scenario where it could play, it could not play. But when you're tournament fishing, this is from the tournament aspect. I'm bass fishing. I'm throwing, I'm trying to catch a fish no matter how you have to catch him. And I've done pretty well in the 5 years I was doing the tournament stuff. And there's only been one or two incidences where I was like, for sure, if you put whatever it might be, garlic scent, squid scent, shad scent, crawfish scent on your jig or on your swim bait, you're going to catch more fish. There's only been a couple incidences. For the most part, you're not. It's not going to matter, especially for a striper. I feel like the way you could catch a striper, the easiest way to catch a striper is to tease them into biting. Get that kind of reaction bite. Get them where they're, you play to their weaknesses basically. So for the most part, if you're just a traditional guy, you're not throwing giant swing baits, you're not trolling, you're not doing anything like that. The easiest way to get a striper to bite is with a jerk bait. I feel like the stripers and the smallmouths kind of have a very similar mindset when it comes to jerk baits. They're very very curious creatures. They feel like they're the king of the sea. No one's supposed to mess with them. And all of a sudden, you got this little fish that's not afraid of them and it's darting all over the place. And it's just a curiosity thing. They have to come and they just have to swipe at it, just to prove that they're the king. And a lot of times when you swipe at it, that's how you get the hooks on the outside of the mouth and not on the inside. Okay, I think that's my reason for it at least. Okay, so we got about 20 guys, 21 guys right now. We only got 7 thumbs up, so go give me a thumbs up, guys. Help me out a little bit. So, like I said, we're talking about stripers tonight, and we're gonna pretty much kind of play over 10 years of my experience within an hour and a half. Okay, so I'm trying to help everybody out. I don't know what stage you're in, whether you're a true beginner or you're ready for that next step. So, we're gonna start from back when I just started striper fishing, my gear to what I like to carry and what I like to do right now. So, all right, it's 10 minutes in. I think we got enough guys on, so we're going to start. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as we go. So for the reason of this title is kind of like why 90% of the guys are not catching stripers. It's really because either one, you don't have enough knowledge about the fish, or two, you're just not moving around enough. And I'll elaborate on that as I go through my stories, right? And you kind of have to place yourself kind of in my story where you're at, because I'm gonna go from like I knew nothing to where I feel like I could catch them anytime I go out. Okay, so I know it's a big spectrum there, but I'll just have to start, and you could either not pay attention and just plug up your ears until my life basically gets to where you're at, and you can follow along. Okay, so when I first started, stripers, it wasn't a targeted fish. Like, we caught them by accident, and if we caught one that was a legal size, everybody was just happy. Everybody was just happy, and like I said, you caught them by accident. You were trying to catch bluegills or crappies, and somehow a striper bit you. Okay, and that was it. You might see a striper maybe twice, 3 times a year, and that's it. It has gotten to the point where now, if I want to catch a striper, I can catch one almost on demand between me and my brothers, right? Almost on demand. We can go out, we can switch the tackle around, and we can say, this is where the striper likes to live during this time of year, things like that. So when we first started, like I said, crappies and mistakenly get bit. If you're brand new to stripers, that's probably where you're at. All right, so we want to change that. You want to be a better striper fisherman, right? So first thing we're going to do is we are going to have to give up the crappies, the bass, all that panfish, just kind of right off, okay? Because we need to change your mindset, because you have to turn into like a trophy chaser now, because these fish are going to be harder to catch. Hey, what do you know? Look at this guy.
Yo.
This is the other guy that you guys haven't seen yet.
Been MIA for
But
a while.
He's the striper guru of the group. He's the one that while we were bass fishing, he was smashing stripers for about 3-4 years. All the dam stuff, all basically every single dam video for the past 3 years has been this guy right here. So he's got a lot of knowledge too, in terms of, like, say, surf rods, modifying lures, uh, perfect balance of everything. Lots of do not do this too, because it's not going to work, because I tried it already. Yeah, that's right. His name's 47. Yeah, so reach on the camera a little bit so you can see him. But he's joining us tonight. Yeah. Yeah, so we got a lot of people in the house tonight. We got a lot of kids over too, so you hear all that rustling around the background. That's why. But I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to kind of paint my lifestyle, or my life, in terms of striper fishing, so that when you guys uh, get to the stage where I'm at, you know what to do, right? So we've already covered the whole bass fishing, crappie fishing, bluegill fishing, and you get bit by a striper by accident. That was truly an accident. You don't want to do that. You want to advance a little bit beyond that. So the first thing you want to do is take a look at your gear and see if it's striper worthy. Okay, because you can do a lot with a little bit. Don't look at my gear. My gear is super advanced right now. But when we started striper fishing, our rods were 7 foot medium heavies.
Just regular.
Yeah, I mean,
Panfish rods, crappie rods.
yeah, you could start with that. The only thing, the major thing about it is you just gotta know how to use your drag. That's probably the most important part about the first step to striper fishing, because when you're bluegill fishing, crappie fishing, and for the most part bass fishing, you will probably never use the drag. You probably will never use it. But as soon as you get into the striper fishing, first thing it's gonna do is it's gonna break your line, because when the striper hits you, it's like a do or die situation for him, and he has the power now to run and to open water and basically break your 6, 8, 10 pound line. It's gonna do it, and you're just gonna be like super surprised that you gotta bite, and it's gonna be the most ferocious bite you've ever hit too. If you're coming from bass, crappies, and bluegills.
Yeah, it's happened to me.
Yeah, it happens to everybody.
Broke
Okay,
my line the first time.
yeah, it breaks everybody's lines
That's how
the
you
first
get
time, and then you're so confused, you're just kind of like, "What the hell just happened?" Everybody goes through that moment of like, "I can't believe this has happened," and I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to prevent that. Like if I get hit again, it's gonna break my line again. So then you're thinking, I don't want it to bite me again.
Yeah, the first time that happened to me, I basically had to stop fishing because I took off my line basically.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It might spoil you too, because depending on how big this fish is, right? So, couple things to watch out for. So take whatever you have. Make sure when you're fishing for stripers, you have a full spool of line. It doesn't matter what brand of line yet. We're just getting you to the next step, right? Full spool, fresh line. That's very important too. Don't be fishing line that's like 2 years old on that spool. Ask me how I know. Yeah, it broke me off too. 2 years old line, okay? So you get to that stage, and that's where you kind of experiment with what is good, what is not good. And depending on what kind of striper size also. So if you're fishing for freshwater stripers, then you could probably get away with 10, 15 pound line. But if you're one of those guys, and if you just know that you're in an area that's got, say, stripers that are bigger than, what, 24 inches? If you got stripers in your area and in abundant numbers that are bigger than 24, you should step up to 20-pound braid or even 30. But that 50, 60, that's really overkill, I feel, for your little 7-foot rod. So 20 is probably more than enough for the most
20's
part.
probably like perfect if you got a small rod.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. So now your gear's prepped, right? Your gear's a little bit better now, right? So you kind of hopefully you're listening to this video and the fish didn't break your heart because you would save yourself some sadness and sorrow there. Okay, so that's basically what happened to my dad. Like we lived in Fresno for a long time, and this is a step that we kind of stepped over because they were telling us a lot of these stories, and we figured out the drags like really early on. But I remember my dad and them telling us like they didn't know what drag was. They would turn the knob on the top of the spinning reel until it stops turning, which basically it locked it down.
Yeah, it locks down.
It locks the drag down, and they're on 15-pound mono, and they're breaking off every time, and they're always saying, after that first run, if it doesn't break off, then you're good. Like you have a shot at getting this fish in. And I'm always thinking like, wait, there's a drag on this thing. Why can't you guys just loosen it up a little bit? They were like, what is that? What is a drag? And then of course you have to figure it out. But the drag, I feel, is a very, very, very important thing about your reels. And I didn't even mention the really high-end reels yet. But every single reel, you should learn how to master that drag system on that reel that you got. Okay? So that's the first major step. The next major step is just fresh fishing line. I know at the time, a spool of line is very expensive, but what we probably would recommend is just, even braid now. I would even say go to braid for 2022, 20-pound Power Pro original 20-pound line probably runs you $15 right now for like 150 yards.
15 yards.
Right, so that's probably a really good line to start if you're just trying to swap over to braid, and then go to a clip and just use the clip. I don't even want you guys to start tying like leaders yet because that's an advanced thing too. So just go to a clip and just use that. So from there on out, okay, so you want to chase stripers and you've already gotten your heart broken one time. What do you do next, right? The next thing you probably should do is learn the behavior patterns of a striped bass. Whether you're in the river system or whether you're in a lake system, you need to learn the behavior patterns of the fish. That way you're not wasting a lot of time. So to keep it real simple, when you're starting out, early birds always get the worm. They always get the worm. So pick your point, pick an area the wind's blowing on it probably, and then go out there early. And when I'm saying early, I'm thinking like 3:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. Give yourself at least an hour before sunlight happens, and go out there and just start throwing like a crankbait or a fluke of some kind, like real lightweight light quarter ounce jig heads, and just start throwing out there and just start winding them back. If you're on some type of a jerk bait or something, just wind real slow. Because for some reason, in my experience, the stripers really love that last hour of pitch black before the sunlight, starts coming in. And when the sunlight hits, it's either it's going to happen like gold rush or nothing's going to happen. Okay, so the hour before the first light, you might get a bite every, say, 10 minutes, right? So it's still kind of slow, but it should be consistent. And then as soon as you see light, it might be like, you got one, he's got one, Oprah's just handing out fish, right? And you get one, you get one, you get one, you get one. It might be like that. And if you run into one morning like that, I guarantee you're hooked. You're just like, man, screw all them little basses. I don't want a bluegill no more unless if I'm using it for bait. So there's a lot of that floating around, and I hope you guys experience that, because the early morning bite for stripers is something that has already been engraved into our minds. If you want to chase stripers, you got to be out there early. It's just one of those things. Or
you just wake up and go.
Yeah, you just wake up and go. It's an alarm clock. It just wakes up and it goes,
Yeah.
So for the guys that are wanting, pick a time or day, go early. Go really early. And when they're early like that, the stripers are really close to the bank. And this is the reason why I want you to go early, because you don't have the fancy gear yet to cast 100 or 125 yards. So in the morning, if the stripers happen to be active, they're no more than 20 yards off the bank. You can catch them. Everybody can catch them. All types of gear can catch them. And that's what is really good about this fish. It's willing to move more than 100 yards in a matter of, I don't even know, like 5 minutes to come to the shore and chase bait. And that's where you want to be too. You want to be at the shore where they're chasing bait to the shore, and it's going to be magical sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, stripers is primarily a schooling fish, so they're moving all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Yeah, they'll travel to get the food.
If you don't know what schooling fish is, hang out, because we're going to talk about that once we get to the boat world. But when you're just starting out, like, we didn't know what a schooling fish was either at one point. We just see, oh, we caught one striper. That's nice. Oh, caught another one? There must be 2 of them here. But in reality, there's probably like 200. But we just had no clue. So once you get through that stage where you've caught your first one, you're going out there early, and then some people just stay at that point, and they're just like, that's it. You can also take that idea and duplicate it at night. Go out there, just right at sunset and just stay for 2-3 hours, and you'll be like great too. You'll catch, I would say 80% of your catches happen within those first 3 hours and the last 3 hours of the day. For most people, most land-based people, that's probably where, I don't know, most people go fishing for stripers. So that's true at dams, that's true at lakes, that's true on rivers. It's just like a universal, you should go fishing during this time. And it happens all year. It's not one of those things where it only happens during spawn or the wintertime or things like that. If there's a striper in the area, he's going to come to the shallows. It's just his nature. Okay? Yeah.
Suki.
Where's Suki at?
Yeah. Swim bait. Mo swim bait slinger.
Yeah. Mo swim bait slingers. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's like one of the things I want to do this year too. Is like throw big baits for big stripers down here. So.
Yeah. We're trying to get into that right now.
I gotta get back into the live bait and swim bait world to do that.
Yeah, he's the local guy that does it all the time. So
yeah.
I'm going to have to go hit him up for some sweet spots. But yeah, so what was he talking about now? I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. Suki said Keystone Dam.
Yeah, Suki's a local guy too. Keystone Dam. Local.
Yeah, I mean, you guys to catch striper, you guys can go to the dams and catch them year round. Yeah. Striper is not one of those fish where it just bites in the spring. So.
It's year round. Plus the dams, like, it kind of come in waves.
Yeah. So
you just gotta catch it with the waves there.
Yeah, and then like different season, you'll use different baits. And if you guys go out there enough, most of the local guys there, you'll be able to kind of see the trend change.
Mm-hmm.
Like 1 year, I was out there like
Okay, so that's step number like 4 or 5, right? So once you get past the stage of like just waking up early and just being there, you need to pay attention to what people are doing.
Yeah.
Okay, pay attention to what people are doing because the mindset of the fish changes from almost week to week.
Yeah,
It's almost week to week they'll change. Like you might be there early in the year and all they want is a fluke and nothing else, or an A-rig and nothing else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it starts to change March, and then the A-rig all of a sudden not as good anymore for some whatever reason, right? Just not as good.
But the fluke is going to be good year round. But then
The fluke
you'll
is
have
good year round.
certain baits that will outproduce the fluke.
The
So
fluke
it just
is the
depends on
one
season.
that you should always, if you have 2 rods, right? The fluke is always tied on, right?
Yeah.
But there's always like a better option, it feels like, to catch them. But you kind of have to switch back and forth.
Yeah.
Plus, the fluke is real cheap.
Yeah.
You lose a fluke, it's not bad.
Best bang for the buck.
Yeah. By far, best bang for the buck.
But you'll lose, I mean, lure-wise, you'll lose flukes the most.
Yeah.
Because you're fishing, especially at dams. If you're
bouncing
fishing,
off rocks too much.
yeah, 1 or 2 ounce, 3 ounce, you're fishing basically the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be donating a lot of those guys.
Yep.
So,
So, okay, so that's kind of like a step 4, right? So as you're advancing through your years, you will start noticing lures. That's the first thing you'll start noticing, right? You still got your Walmart rod and reel, right? With your like 15-pound braid, right? And it's only like a 7-foot. And all of a sudden you start noticing this one guy is throwing like a fluke, but he's got on this giant bobber, right? Which is very, very common for the local guys. They're drifting flukes with a bobber. It might only happen in our state, so it might be special.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I've only seen it here. I haven't really gone to the other states. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
yep,
that's a technique.
That's a local technique, you know, because our dams are a little shallow. So if you throw on anything else, you might get snagged up real easy. So a lot of the out of town boys too. If you're coming to town, picking up one floater is not a bad idea. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. And then, okay, so you start noticing lures, right? So as the trend goes through the years, it kind of goes like that. And then when the water hits about 65, that's when the shad spawn happens. And the striper's already done spawning at that point. But when the shad spawn happens, that's when top water starts, right? So you go from an Alabama rig to possibly a fluke, and now you want to just throw nothing but top waters. Okay, so as your fishing age ages, you start noticing these things. All right? And you're just like, I want that 2-ounce top water. And I'm going to throw it on my 7-foot rod. And every time you throw it, it's going to look like the rod's going to break. Because it's not rated for 2 ounces, right? But you'll be okay. You'll be okay like that for a couple years, right? Because, hey, it throws a little bit farther than the traditional lure. And for the most part, you haven't even thought it through that I need to reach those fish that are blitzing 100 yards out. You're still perfectly okay. You're perfectly okay with your 30-yard cast, right? Until that one day you're there and you might meet this guy. Yeah, until you're there and you might meet him. And he comes out and he just slings it 125 yards out there. You can't even see where the lure drops, right?
Or Suki.
Or Suki's pretty good too. He'll demonstrate that like free of charge.
Yeah, you guys will meet Suki.
Yeah, he's pretty local, right? So you come out there and you're like, okay, I'm pretty good about 30 yards, 40, 50 yards. And then Suki or one of these guys comes out and it's like, whooshing, and then it just goes, shh. You can't even see the lure drop. And as soon as it drops, they just set the hook. And you're thinking, what the heck just happened? I can't even imagine that. Like if someone told you about that they can cast 125 yards and you've never seen it done in front of you, you wouldn't believe it. Because in your little world that you're still growing up in, You never even seen anybody cast past 50.
It's all perspective. You've
Yeah.
never seen it before, and probably
Didn't realize it.
You
too.
never, you
Yeah.
never really thought about
Yeah.
casting that far.
So as you're growing, okay, so then you see that moment, right? And then you're like, okay, I already got the best line. I already got the same exact lure. I wonder what else is they got. Like, what else do I have to get? Like, what else is out there? And then you come up and you start asking, probably Suki, he drops a price tag on you. And you're like, right? And they start introducing you to high performance gear. And that's basically what it is, high performance. So now your Walmart rod or your Bass Pro Shops rod, it's just not gonna cut it, man. Like you could optimize it, you could learn how to cast so much better, but you're only gonna get another like 20 yards, right? So you from your 40, you might get up to 60. So now we're talking, if you're fishing dams, you're gonna want a surf rod. Okay? A surf rod will guarantee you an easy another 30 yards, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're now touching that 80 to 90 yard range. Okay. And a lot of people, they don't believe it until they see it, that the surf rod can really do that. You can get the rod and still run your old reel, and it still gets up there. But if you pair it with the right reel too, now you're in that 100-yard range. Like the average person. We're probably getting to that average 100-yard range. Right? So most people kind of stop right there too, you know. So, and then most people take it to the complete extreme, and then they go custom rods, like custom lures, and they do all these custom reels, and they have like custom built rods where the guy measures your wingspan and he builds a rod for you, so when you sling it, it's like maximum power out of your body. It gets expensive. How much is one of them rods? Like $800-900.
Yeah, for a cheaper one.
Yeah.
$1,000 for $1,000 plus just for the rod.
Yeah. And how much are them reels?
Depends on the reel, man.
Yeah.
$1,000+.
$1,000+.
Couple $1,000.
So okay, so as a land-based guy, that's probably where you're gonna max out at. You know, like about a $2,000 setup, right?
You can buy a kayak.
Exactly.
Remember?
That's where this dog gonna make the transition. Okay.
You reach that fork.
You reach the fork in the road. Okay, that's what happened to us. Okay, that's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
It got to a point where I was thinking, like, if I'm gonna buy a $300 rod, a $300 reel, I might as well take that $600 and buy myself a boat.
Yep.
And I did.
One of the questions: what's the best color lures or striper? I mean, you can't go wrong with white, which what is it? The
Emerald swimmer
Stinger mentioned white or chrome. Those are like my go-tos.
Yeah, because the thing is, the stripers, they don't. The reason why we keep saying like bone or chrome, you know, like bone is basically white, right? This is bone. Like coffee cut is bone, right? That for guys that don't know what bone is, that's bone. Porcelain color, right? The reason why I say like the stripers are, you don't have to go too crazy with the colors is because a lot of the people that harvest or they attempt to catch stripers, they will harvest the striper. So I feel like they don't get smarter because we don't do a lot of catch and release. So I feel like it's not like the largemouth bass world where 99% of the largemouths are released and they get smarter and smarter and smarter. I feel like a striper, if you catch one, it's a 50-50 shot. Probably more than 50-50 that he's going to get harvested.
Yeah.
Especially at the dams.
Most of the guys there are fishing to keep.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys there that are kind of like trophy chasers. We just want to catch the big one. Yep. And, you know, we understand release, you know, some so they can go, so then we could catch them again.
Mm-hmm.
They do get smarter.
But they do get smarter, though. Like, you realize, like, over
that's
the
how
past
those big
years,
fish get big, is they get smart.
Yeah. They won't eat anything unless they've already sniffed it, and it looks just like the stuff they ate yesterday. Yeah. You know? Like
there has to be something new.
Yeah, that's something new. Because I remember the year we started throwing Alabama rigs, crazy.
And now those
crazy. Like, you could have swore there was no fish in the dam area. Like, with, like the repellent stopped working, the fluke stopped working. Like, as soon as the sun came up, it was just dead, right? It was just dead. And then
throw the Bama rig,
man, like every other cast. This is after you've already convinced yourself it's time to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you throw the battle ring in every other cast. It's crazy. Okay. Well, that's the other thing too. The battle ring. Forgot to mention the battle ring. So if you get all these all these top water lures, then you run into the battle ring, which is basically one lure times 5. Because now you have to tie 5 swim-ins onto this thing and you chuck it out.
Hybrid killer's on.
Yeah. Hybrid killer's on. He's from his
So you look at Suki and his CTS and that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, a CTS 13-foot with a Sotiga rod reel. That's probably stretching it at least 1,500.
No, that's like pushing 2,300.
Suki, how much is that setup, man? Let me know. Let a
Depending
few
on
know
who
too.
built the rod for him.
Yeah.
I mean, Sotiga is close to $1,000 already. Rod is definitely over $1,000.
Yeah. So we can go to the realm of high performance, okay? Because that's what that is. That's a high performance setup. You know? Been that way it calls several times and nada. Yeah, see. I feel like sometimes when you pay attention to, so this is kind of a tip for everybody, right? When you're at the dams, especially when you see us fishing, we tend to not fish the same thing. At least in the beginning, right? The first 30 minutes, everybody's doing something different.
Yeah.
Because you figure out what they want and what they want best, actually. Because sometimes you go out and then the fluke is there getting pretty good, but say all of a sudden, you might not even see any topwater action, but they're actually wanting a topwater.
Yeah, they're actually just subsurface.
Just like a foot under the surface. And when you throw the fluke out there, it actually drifts on the bottom. Yeah. So try a bunch of different things.
I think that goes with the color too. Sometimes they do get picky and they don't want the white, so then you throw a chartreuse, or even like a bogum or pink. And
there is like a 1 week period every year with the bubble gum actually works pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you guys watch our videos, you guys see that I've thrown pink before and it works good.
Yeah, so, bubble gum is pink. It's a girly color, but it ain't so funny when you're the one catching fish. It's true. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember one time. That's what happened at Yvonne. I was the only one throwing pink. I don't want to catch a fish.
Yeah. It's like there's moments in time, and then also the other color, the natural bait stuff, like it's called a Arkansas Shiner, and there's literally a color called Baitfish from Zoom. It's basically like a little gray bottom. It's clear top. It's a bunch of like glitter in it. Yeah. That's actually a pretty good color too. Pretty good color. Yeah, so Suki says Sotiga is $975. CTS is on 7. Yeah, so like I said, it's about a little above 1,500, and the rod was on sale. That's why it was $700. You imagine if it was custom ordered and it wasn't on sale, and imagine if this guy's like super busy and he's just like got 10 rods in order, and you're like number 11. He's not giving you any deals at all. But hey, CTS, I heard nothing but good things from that company. So those guys know what they're talking about. I'm assuming most of their clients are striper guys.
Yeah, but they build rods for everything. Yeah. All their blanks are really good. It just depends on what you want. They got a whole bunch to choose from.
Yeah. So, a lot of good things coming from that world, right? But then same with the glide bait guys too. It's got to the point where I think there's a mini fork in the road for the land based guys. You're gonna either go surf rod or you will go like bait casters. And bait casting is a whole animal in itself too. Okay? Because we got some expensive bait casters, expensive rods, expensive glide baits. I put the glide baits, the Alabama rigs, almost in one category. Because the Alabama rig, you can't just have one combination. You gotta have, like the example we just gave, right? The 4 different colors of flukes. Well, it's not just one pack. You have to carry like 5 packs for each color. And before you know it, it's like $50 worth of flukes. Whereas before, you only carried like $10 worth of flukes, right? And then, no, you can't have one A-ring. You gotta have like 2. And then a backer for that. So that's $30 with this A-ring. And then the jig heads, how much is those?
Depends on which ones.
Right. See? It depends on which ones, right?
It could be like $6 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
75 cents a piece.
75 cents a piece, like $2 a piece, right? And then you have to hang 5 of them. So think about a rig, right? The A rig, like a good one's probably $15. Then you have $10 worth of jig heads, and then another probably $10 worth of baits. So you're looking at $45 to $50 roughly every time you throw one of those things out there. Every time.
It gets expensive.
It gets
when you start
expensive.
losing them.
But it puts out, right? It's
Yeah.
probably the best one in the wintertime.
But if you want fish to buy,
Yeah. We just demonstrated it in our last video. And we didn't catch anything on anything else. Let's see, I threw a little swim bait. I threw a big swim bait. Well, I didn't put that in the video, but I threw it. Threw a big chatterbait, a small chatterbait. I threw the jackhammer. Didn't do anything. I threw a jerkbait, which I thought was going to work good. Nothing. And then my brother follows me with a custom A-rig. And he catches 2, like 20 yards away from me.
yep, that draw power is
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah. So that's one thing about it. So that's that category. So I kind of want to put that to rest because that's kind of the end of the striper evolution on the bank. Unless you start like moving to different areas or different parts of the state. And that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people, they just don't move around, right? So we are actually pretty lucky. The area that we're in, there's multiple lakes that have pretty good striper population. I'm not gonna lie. So there's rivers that have them. There's dams. There's like 3 or 4 dams around us that have them. And every one of those dams seem like the lakeside has them.
Yeah, most of those dams have stripers.
Yeah, so you kind of have to have almost like a little team of fishermen, which everyone's kind of checking up on places too, so that when one dam dies down, the other dam's firing up. You can just basically hop places, and that's how we were able to stay on top of the striper stuff. It almost seems like it's all year. So that's just land based. Once you put boats and kayaks into that mix, you can pretty much fish one lake the entire year.
One area.
Yeah, the entire year.
And should be able to dial in and catch them year round.
So that's the thing, right? So it gets to the point where okay, I got a $1,000 setup, but I'm still in the bank. So I have to literally move 2 places, right? Or you can spend $4,000 or $5,000, get yourself a boat, and then drop another $2,000 on electronics, and then you can chase these little striped bass all year round. That's actually the next step. And then the middle step is probably the kayak. So if you get the kayak's pretty cool because the kayak, if you guys see it on our channel, we actually have a truck and a double trailer, we pull 2 of them. But for the beginning guy, you can actually put the kayak on top of a car and you can just move it around like that, and it's fine too. And that's a great way to get off the bank. A great way to target stripers because after they spawn in the little creeks and rivers on the lake, you actually go back to the main lake and stay on the main lake points for the most part the rest of the year until it gets cold again and they will chase the bait back up the river. But for the most part, except for the spawn, you are on the main lake. And when you're chasing stripers on the main lake, a lot of times they could be at, right at the surface or they could be 50 foot down. So a good set of electronics is key. And at that point, your $1,000 rod that you bought while you're on the bank, it's not worth its weight in dollars anymore because you're not casting anymore. For the most part, you're gonna find them and you're gonna drop down on them, or you're gonna troll, or you're gonna find them like relating to certain humps, and you'll cast to the humps. But your baits still play. See, that's the crazy part, right? Your flukes that you had bought for the dams, they're still gonna play. If you have glide baits or whatever, still gonna play. You can fish in bluffs, things like that. If you're fishing the flukes play perfect. The jig head with a piece of plastic body, if they're on humps, that's probably one of the best baits to throw. I like the big spoons. So the big spoons are awesome during they call it post spawn, where they've gone up the rivers already and they've retreated back to the main lake. That's probably the easiest time to catch them from a boat or from a kayak. And they're already pretty aggressive. They're chasing shad all day too. So that early morning bite happens, and then the early morning bite's always near the bank, and then you got to understand the fish kind of move off the bank, and then they hang out somewhere. in late May, early June, there's always a group of stripers, hybrids, or white bass hanging out 20 foot to 30 foot. There's always a group, and they're the easiest to catch too. They're at the hungriest point in their life for that year at that moment, and it's it's lights out. You find them, it's lights out. So that's something that the guys on the bank will not ever kind of experience. But the guys on the boats and the kayaks is now your time to shine. So depending on where you're at, right, what stage you are in your striper fishing pursuits, a kayak is a great option if you can't afford a real boat. And when you buy a kayak, just buy one that's designed for fishing. Okay, at least one that's designed for fishing. If you have to ask me, I would say it's a Hobie. That's the only one I've ever owned, and I don't see any reason to upgrade. Okay, so I run Hobies. A lot of guys are running Old Towns. A lot of guys are running Jacksons, and they are just as good, if not better in some cases. Some of them come with trolling motors. Okay, so kind of look at that, and kind of a rule of thumb is your kayak needs to be probably a good price point right now would be about $800, brand new, right? $800 to $2,000 is a really good range for a kayak. The more expensive the kayak, obviously, the better it's going to be. But yeah, feel free, Lord 13.5. That's a good one too. And a lot of people run the feel frees, and they're pretty happy with it. So nothing but good things to say about the feel free kayaks. And in the world of kayaks, if you don't know if it's the first time trying to buy a kayak, a lot of the kayak shops are willing to take you out to a local pond, or there might be like a exhibit type of day where they'll bring a whole bunch of kayaks to the river, and you can just go run, just basically paddle around for free and see if you even like kayaks. Okay, and that's the other thing too. In the kayak world, you kind of have to be, I wouldn't say fit, but you gotta have a decent amount of stamina to really stay out there, especially if the winds are blowing that day. All right, so let's see. Go ahead. So how do you track fish in open water? Okay, so for that, it's really dependent on how good your electronics is. You could have and if you get a kayak, you're gonna chase stripers. You have to have electronics. It doesn't really matter if it's a $100 unit or a $2,000 unit. You gotta have you gotta have electronics. Is what I think, because when you're fishing offshore, you gotta have some indication of like, is there something below me or not, or what is below me? Is it dirt? Is it rock? Is it a tree? Something. So you have to get to know your fish finder. I've done a lot with my expensive fish finder, my $2,000 fish finder, you can say, after all the bells and whistles that are added to it. But I've done a lot of damage with a little Lowrance hook. I think it was a hook 4, and it's like a $200 fish finder, okay? And we've done a lot of damage with that too. But you have to kind of know what the capabilities of that unit is, and you use that unit for what it was designed for. So the one I'm talking about is one of the videos where me and Captain Hook was trolling. So for the most part, if you're just starting to striper fish on the open water, I would suggest fishing shallow early in the morning before the sun comes up. Just fish shallow. As soon as you see the sun, just start trolling offshore. But don't even start it. Go find the fish and then do U-turn and troll back through it. If you have a trolling motor, it's even easier. It's even easier. Uh, Trolling motors are one of those things that are super debatable in the kayak world too. But if you're not tournament fishing, go for it. Just go for it. A trolling motor actually opens up the world quite a bit, because I could talk to that angle too. When I first started kayak fishing, I didn't even have a kayak. Actually, I bummed rides off other guys that have kayaks. So my first exposure to the kayak world was on a new canoe 14. So it was a kayak that was shaped like a canoe. Hence, it was called a new canoe. It was actually from Captain Hook and V-Man from the other channel, and I didn't have a boat yet. I didn't have anything yet, and I wanted to test the theory of a kayak. I didn't buy a boat, but that was my first exposure to like being off the bank. And both of those guys had kayaks with trolling motors, and it changed the game. It really literally changed the game, especially when you're trolling. It literally changes the game. Okay, so we're trolling A rigs, we're trolling crankbaits, we're trolling flukes, whatever you got to do. When you're trolling, and for about a 2 to 3 year period, we didn't even want to fish on the bank anymore. Like we kind of knew if it wasn't during that prime time, twilight hours, don't even go. Okay, don't even go. But if you're on a kayak, like I said, in the morning you can troll near the bank or fish near the bank, and then when the sun comes up, go offshore and just troll. You will continue to catch them, and that's the crazy part. You just got to be around the stripers. They're fairly aggressive, so if you have a fluke in the area, you have an A rig in the area, they're gonna bite it. It's like their natural instinct to come and kind of just mess with your baits. So uh, they always hungry. Kind of think of it like that. The stripers and hybrids and white bass were always hungry. I've never seen a school of stripers that were sitting on the floor, like on the ground floor, talking expensive electronics, right? So you can see them with a 2D. You can see them. They're on the ground, and I've never been able to not catch them. I've always been able to catch at least one out of a group of like 5 or 6. And here's the weird thing too. Okay, so when you're trolling for stripers, when you start trolling for stripers or start fishing for stripers, hybrids and white bass offshore, this is probably the best tip of the night for anybody wanting to start that. When you're new to the world of fishing and you get your first fish finder, you get this you stuck in this mentality of, oh look, there's a fish, I want to catch it. You see one fish, you see two fish, I want to catch it. And my recommendations on that is you need to pass those guys up. Just pass them up. You need to find the mother lode. And in the month of May and June, this is the best time to do this. You will find the mother lode, I guarantee you. Go to the point, scan 30, 40, 50 foot, and you will find it. If they're not there, if they're not there in your fish finder, it's because they're not there. Go to the next point, okay, and do it all over. Do a bunch of figure eights until you find them. And when you do, throw flukes at them, and that's all you really got to do. And you can get them. You can get them. Okay, it's not that hard. But that's your first. That's probably your first year of true offshore fishing. Okay. And then you're going to start realizing, man, it'd be nice if I could get a good fish finder. Okay. And that's another problem. Okay. The addiction continues. So when the addiction continues, you're going to want okay, so let me explain that, right? We started off with a real cheap fish finder, right? Like a Piranha X something. All it did was tell depth. And that was basically it, right? And then I did a bunch of research. I was like, man, I want to get into this fish finder game. So I actually ended up buying the top of the line. I'm talking. I bought my little John boat too, right? My John boat I paid like $2,600 for. It's a 14 foot with a 9.9 horsepower on the back. I bought it for $2,600, right? Which was, don't get me wrong, it's not a nice boat. It was faster than a kayak, and my Civic could tow it, and you didn't have to pedal. So that's what I wanted. I put a little trolling motor on it and everything like that. Okay, and then I started thinking, I need to get a unit that has whatever the world has to offer, right? So I did about 4 months worth of research on YouTube, of course, and like I said, I bought the most expensive Hrbird unit at the time. Okay, and I was lucky too because it was on sale. It was like a $2,000 unit on sale for $1,600. I bought it. It had everything. It had all the bells and whistles. It had more capabilities in it than I even dreamed I could use. Now it's a slow unit, but back then, it had the major part of it was side imaging. Okay, the side imaging, 2D sonar, down imaging, GPS, lake maps, Ethernet capabilities, and the list continues. Okay, so I got that and I started playing with that, and then it got to the point where I got real good with it. And the crazy part about side imaging, for the guys that don't know, why it is important that if you're going to buy a unit in today's age, you should buy one with at least side imaging on it. So side imaging is the ability to look to the side. Like here's your boat coming down, and you want to look this side, you want to look at that side. But up until side imaging, you only have the sonar that look down. So if you're going to comb an area, you literally have to do this, combing an area. All right. Like a guy with side image, he can just come right through one time, and he's scanning this way, and he's scanning this way. He comes through one time, and he can say, "There's no fish there. Let's go to the next point." So for the guy that doesn't have side imaging, it might take you 30 minutes to comb an area, right? Thoroughly. A guy with side imaging comes through 2 minutes, 3 minutes. He's done, and he's off to the next spot. Or he's like, you know what? There is fish 50 feet to my right. Okay, that's something that the traditional, cheaper fish finders cannot do. And I've done that many times too. Even in the job boat, I'm just kind of, putting around, and I see fish to my left or my right, and I just tie on, I fire right out there, first cast, and as it's falling, I get smoked. I've done that many times. I've made a lot of skeptical people believe in the fish finder too. Captain Hook was one of them. Captain Hook, because I bought my fish finder and I was explaining all these other stuff to him. Did not believe me. He wanted a Lowrance unit. And I was like, I don't know Lowrances. You have to buy a Hrbird so I can tell you about Hrbird features. So he finally buys like the upgraded version of mine the following year. So he's got a boat too this time. So we go out and he goes, I don't believe in this side imaging thing, man. I see all this stuff, but I just don't know what to do. And so we're kind of like trolling around, and I'm like, oh, bro, there's a mega school to the right. And it's about, I'm doing the calculations in my mind. I'm like, looking at the fish finder. Like, oh, they're about 30 yards. No, they're about 30 feet to the right, and they're about 20 feet back. Okay, so I go here. Like, just take your bucktail and just sling it out there. So he takes his bucktail, his things out there. I have a fluke with half ounce head. I sling it out there too. And on the way down, he gets bumped, but he doesn't know that he got bumped. He keeps thinking he hit a tree because that lake has a lot of trees. There's a lot of standing timber on Sky too, right? So he gets bumped, and then I get bumped, and I set the hook, and I'm just like, oh, I got him. I got one, right? I got one. And we're over 65 foot of water. The fish is only about 30 feet down, and I swing hard, and I get one, right? And then it comes right off. I'm like, no. I was about to show you the magic, right? So Coley gives, his name is Coley. He knows who he is. He goes, no, you freaking lying. So he reels it real fast. He's checking his hook. He's like, no, nothing wrong with it. So he chucks it back out there. I'm like, dude, just throw it back out there. Throws it back out there like 10 seconds later as it's dropping, he's reeling it. It just loads up and he sets the hook hard. And he's got one. And it's coming to the boat. And then we lose it at the boat. But at least we saw the fish. Like, you saw the fish, right? It's those moments, right? It's those moments that you're like, okay, it just got real. It just got really real, okay? So then we go on and we catch like 3 or 4 out of that pack before they just disappear, right? Well, mind you, this is not fishing on the land. This is not even fishing near anything. We're not even fishing off of a point. We were cruising across the lake and we saw fish on side imaging and we just cast towards them. True story. All right, so there's side imaging, and then there's like all the new tech that's coming out right now. Forward-facing sonar, it's huge. We just bought one. We just bought the Mega Live literally a week ago, right? And I've had 1 hour on it so far, and I'm telling you, schooling fish, stripers, white bass, that schooling fish is game over. It's such a big game changer. It took me 2 years to adopt this, to finally pick it up, because I wanted to learn everything else I could learn before I got this new technology. Because I feel like you have to work on your fundamentals before you can really fully utilize this new tech. Because this new tech, there's no longer any guesswork. You literally turn it, you see him, you cast over there, you can see your bait fall through the water, you can see your bait fall to the school of fish, and you can see the fish come up after it and hit it. Yeah, it's that good, the new technology. But it's a pretty penny to play. You're looking about, just budget about $3,000 for something like that. But we do have it. We do have it. What side imaging entry level fish finder do you recommend? If you're serious about fishing, I would say Helix 7. That's the one I had before I went to the Helix 8. The Helix 7, the MSI model. MSI is the one that Hrbird deems side imaging. Okay, MSI. Side imaging. Mega side imaging. So that's the one I would recommend. Uh, it's got a big enough screen so you can see details. So this is the reason why I want the bigger screens. When there's I think they offer the side imaging down to a 5-inch, but the screens are so small you can't make out what you're seeing. Okay, so you want to go a bigger screen. The 7's pretty good. I ran the 7 for about 3 years. I was never at a disadvantage. I felt like around the 7, and then you also get all the good tech with it. All the good tech with it. So yeah, Hrbird, Helix 7, MSI. Get at least a Gen 3. At least a Gen 3. I think they're up to Gen 4 now. Well, you might as well get a Gen 4 then. But that's what I got for at least from the fishing side of it. The boat side, once again, when you're searching for stripers, when you get to the advanced world, and this is starting to talk advanced. So if you're one of those advanced guys, let me know in the comments because I don't want to talk too much advanced if I'm losing everybody, okay? But I'll just mention this. That when it gets to the advanced world, like I was just telling you, don't stop and fish until you find the mega schools. When you get advanced, those mega schools, they are not very active. Okay, you actually want to find the schools of like 5 to 10 fish that are around the points that are roaming. Those are the active schools. Those are like the wolf packs that you want to chase. Because when you find those wolf packs, they're real hungry, they're real easy to catch. But it takes an advanced skill to find, and then it takes an advanced skill to line up and fire a lure at these fish. I've done it multiple times, but once again, it's like advanced, super advanced. I actually took my striper knowledge and used it in bass tournaments and almost won that. Okay, using this hunting down wolf packs type of mentality. What is the biggest topwater you throw? Biggest topwater depends on what kind of fish you're chasing. So, if you're talking striper, saltwater, they're big. They're like I don't know if I have any, but it's like 12 inches. It's a 4-ounce Gibbs topwater. Just type in Gibbs topwater and you'll see it. It's big. It's like $24 each, something like that. But that's a very common topwater size for ocean based stripers. The local stripers don't want to bite that because like most of their forage is real small. Most of the forage or their bait that they eat around here, they're all like 5 inches and less. Majority of them. They do hit the gizzards. The gizzard shats can get to 12, 14 inches too. But I feel like that's kind of like a 5% of their diet type of issue, where the little thread fins they eat them, by the thousands. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. 6-inch striking mega dog, mega bass, mega dog, 8.5 inch. Yeah, those are all pretty good too. But depends on your budget too. So there's the all the mega bass lures are real good. Don't get me wrong. I love them all. Like every single one of them. I feel like it's worth every single penny. Like I've never bought a mega bass lure and said, I don't think it's worth that money. Every single mega bass lure I've bought have put out too. So all my Edo Vision 110s, those are real good drink baits. But I don't know, man. Them hooks are pretty weak for stripers. I'll be honest. So it may not work for stripers. All the little poppers, they're great for bass. I've caught too many bass on them. But when it comes to like stripers, a lot of times if you're a new guy, don't buy the expensive lures because I feel like you're gonna break them off and you're probably gonna hate yourself. So just go with something cheap. When you get better and you get more advanced, then you start seeing the reasons why a mega bass lure is a mega bass lure. The mega basses, the Lucky Crafts, the higher end brands, Those lures are more better thought out. They might have a weight transfer system in them. The hooks are usually better out of the pack. When you cast them, they go farther. When you walk them, they walk better. Or they have different color patterns that may or may not matter to you. But yeah, that's the reason. And I think if you're an advanced angler, you can appreciate those things. Whereas if you're a new guy, you might not even know what a good cast looks like, or what a good hook is. Okay, so how different is it? Freshwater stripers, saltwater stripers. It's almost night and day. It's almost night and day. Um, I don't even know how to compare it. The only thing I can say is like a 20-inch bass, freshwater, no, saltwater will pull as hard as a 28-inch bass freshwater. And that's the only comparison I can say. Looks wise, they're exactly the same. There's no difference. But the ocean water fish, they're like built. Those fish are lean, mean, like eating machines. And there's other fish out there that can eat them. So they have to be fit, right? They have to get away, and they also have to eat other fish. The stripers in the freshwater, it feels like they're the king of the lake. So they can be pretty sloppy. They can be pretty lazy, couch potatoes, and they're fine. There's nothing else going to eat them. So that's the main difference. They hit the same stuff. But those ocean water stripers are much more aggressive. I just feel like they're much more aggressive. Oh yeah, and the other thing about the land-based guys, and it also applies to all the boat guys too, is there in the world of stripers. The hybrids not so much, the white bass not so much in my experience, but the stripers there's a whole like underground like night fishing feel too. Like, you don't have to go there during the day. Like during the summertime, May, June, August, September, there's a night bite that a lot of people don't talk about. There's a really good night bite throughout the entire summer. There's a really good night bite. I know people that don't fish unless if it's dark. They like to go out there and throw a big jerk bait, you know, that they just low wind and then they just smash the night. That's all they do. All right. See ya, MO swim baiter. Yeah, you have to upgrade the treble hooks to size 6 Gamakatsus. Yeah, see, that's the thing though. It depends on which lure you have. You might even want to go to size 4s, depending on how big of a fish you got. And you don't want to mess with the balance too bad with the crankbait because you still got to wobble so the fish can find it. 6-pointed kitex, yeah, 6-pointed kitex are good. I haven't personally caught them yet, but my brain says they should work. They should work really good because you think about it, right? It's got a squid scent. It moves a lot. It moves a lot of water. It moves a lot of water. And at night, you want a lot of movement in the water. So that's why the jointed bomber is so good. Like at night, I prefer the jointed bombers, the jointed jerkbaits compared to the single solid jerkbait. Like the megabasses, the dual realises, all those, they're solid one piece. But at night, I like to throw the bombers. The bomber jointed, it just puts off so much more vibrations. And when you slow wind it, it's still like where all the other baits are kind of really, really finesse, So uh, that's what I like. Um, so I think it's overkill for the big blade trailer. Uh, Not really. I think it feels about right, but you might want to throw it on like a 3/4 ounce or maybe even 1 ounce big blade. But the big blade is really good, but the little D ring thing on the blade itself needs to be swapped out. Swap it out to the Mustad Fast Tech. Mustad Fast Tech. Uh, which tastes better, freshwater or salt? Freshwater. Freshwater, just kidding. Saltwater. Saltwater definitely tastes better. The saltwater doesn't have that fishy smell. The fishy smell is somehow not as strong. It's just across the board. Like the freshwater fish, I don't know what it is. Maybe because they swim in their own piss or something, And they kind of got a gamey smell. The ocean fish, they have a lot less than that. Maybe because of the world spinning, the oceans are spinning. I don't know. Less fish taking a poop in the water, you know. Best deals on jig heads and lures. I don't know, man. I don't pour my own, so I can't really attest to that. But I can point you at some good jig heads that I like. All right, so the good jig heads that I like, the freshwater jig heads that you could probably easily get at the local stores is probably the Striking Squadron jig head. That's a good one. The hook on it's pretty good. We really like it. As long as you're not horsing them too bad, they're pretty good. It's an open style hook. If you're throwing A rigs and you're Texas rigging your baits, uh, there's a hook from Bass Pro Shops. I don't even know if they still make it, but it's the XPS line, which is the Bass Pro specific, and it's a 5/0 with like a quarter ounce lead on it. It's the most heavy duty hook I've ever seen. But it's an EWG. It's a belly weighted swim bait hook. It's a weedless swim bait hook, but it's crazy. It's crazy thick. That's the only hook we've never been able to bend out. Because sometimes when you're fishing dams, you have to pull the fish upriver, and when you get two fish on there, you got to horse them up. A lot of times those hooks will bend out. So at least those are the two that I can really attest to. When you're nighttime fishing, for the most part, running water is not your friend too much. Also, so if you're running at night, a lot of times it's more. Running water is not bad as long as it's not rushing water, and it's actually better on the lake. The more calm it is, the better it is. A little bit of wind blowing on you is actually pretty good, right where you want to be at. All right, guys. So hope you guys kind of enjoyed that. Throw me questions if you have questions about why striper fishing is so hard for you. But for the most part, like I said, you just have to learn the stripers' behavior, what they like to do. Like I said, during the pre-spawn, they run on rivers, and then there's a spawn, and then there's post-spawn. When it's post-spawn, they either head way out deep, they hit the underwater humps, main lake points, or some of them will be chasing the bait fish. That's when the bait fish come to spawn. They'll be all around the bait fish. They'll probably be around the bluegills. They'll be around the shad specifically, lots of shad. There might be a crappie spawn. They might be chasing crappies. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? But that only happens to about mid-June. And after June, it's all summertime, offshore fishing, or nighttime fishing, right? And that goes all the way till late August. Late August is when the stripers go crazy again on the little bait that just hatched that year, that spring. The little bait that's like 1 inch. That's when the 1 inch baits come back to play, and they just gorge themselves. That's when the top water happens, and top water can happen for hours at a time. That's probably the best time to take a new guy fishing, to be honest. And the top water can be on the bank. They can be over the open water. They usually come to the bank. Okay, so they start blitzing. That's why you'll be out there early because the blitz usually starts near the bank because the stripers have pushed this bait all night to the bank, and then they're hitting it on the bank, and then they kind of go back towards open water later as the sun comes out. The stripers water temps don't really dictate too much for me, uh, because if it's too cold, they just won't run. Like it just kind of postpones the scheduled activities. You can say it just kind of postpones it. So for the most part, for me, stripers, water temp 55, they're active. They're active. They're running up rivers already. So you get 55-degree water. You got running water. They're up there. They're up there spawning, doing their thing. And then 65, it hits 70, 60, 55 to 65 is probably when they're most active. Uh, and they're most easiest to catch because they can be on the bank, they can be near the top. You can actually see their activity. And then once it hits that 70 mark, I think that's when the post spawn really takes over, and the stripers tend to go deep. They tend to stay deep too. That's the thing. Unless if it's night and they come to the shore, they stay deep for pretty much the entire summer. They're gonna be deep. Gotta be deep. Unless if you got like a river or something that's drawing their attention, They might stay in the little creeks a little bit, but you're not gonna find crazy schools. You might find like the smaller schools. The majority of them are gonna be out deep because it's an open water fish. They like to be out deep, you know. So they're gonna be out deep. You're gonna catch them out deep. Either you're gonna troll through them with an A-rig, or you're gonna find them on electronics and you just cast to them. Or you can do like what I was telling everybody. You have the new latest ingredients in electronics, and you can see them, and you instead of trolling past them and trolling back, you literally nose up on these fish and you cast right at them. Right. In New England, you're talking the migratory stripers. Migratory stripers are a little different because they like that 55, 65 degree weather. So as the earth tilts, the water temps, they get hotter and hotter and hotter. So the striper move up, 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 up and up, and then they come back down as the water temps drop. So that's migratory stripers. That's a little trippier to do because on those guys, you either catch the migration or you don't. And if you don't catch the migration, then you can kind of rely back on what I just said. So there's also what I call resident stripers, where they don't join the migration; they actually stick around. You can catch stripers all year. When we first started fishing up in Massachusetts, fishing the Boston area, this fishing the Cape Cod area, and fishing the Jamestown, Rhode Island area. It's actually a really good spot. But the migratory stripers, we didn't even know. See, this is the other thing, right? So if you're listening to this, you're already way ahead of my curve. Okay, when I was up there, I didn't know there was a major striper like migration that goes literally from Maine to South Carolina, right? They migrate up and down the coast. We didn't know. So we just thought that the stripers lived there all year. And then we do. We were basically fishing for the local population. And the local population is, I'll be honest, man, if you catch a big one, like a over 40, that's a real good one, right? But when the migration comes through, a 40-inch striper is like it's all right, you know? It's not bad. It ain't great, but it ain't bad. It's not small. I mean, it's a 40-inch striper, so it's pretty good. But if you're taking local stripers, that's a good striper. 40-inch striper is real good. Because for the most part, you're not going to catch anything over, I would say, 37 inches. Okay? That's what we were at, right? We didn't know about the migration, so we would always fish for stripers in the oceans. But we were always catching like those 28, 29, 30s, 32, 33 inch stripers that I would deem were local stripers. Yep. I was gonna go fishing for stripers on the Arkansas River near the gathering place. Would that be smart during this time of year, or would it be a fool to go? Uh, you got a 75% failure rate. Put it that way, because if you're on the bank, is which I know the area you're talking about. If you're on the bank for the most part, you're not gonna catch them. You're not gonna catch them because they'll be too far out of reach. Because you have to wait out there, you have to be on a kayak, and you have to throw an Alabama rig, and you'll catch them on a rig, but you're probably not going to catch them. Probably the best time is always summertime. Always best in the summertime for that general part of the river because that's when everybody else is out there. But at the same time, the spawn is real good. The spawn should happen in about 2 months. So just keep an eye out for that. Yeah, yeah. The hurricane. I forgot who it was. We had some cousins up there that were fishing during the hurricane. It was a hurricane that happened while the migration was there. And they had like 3 straight days of overcast and drizzle. And the stripers hit top water for 3 solid days. And the average striper was 42 inches. The average striper was 42 inches. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. How could an average striper be that big? Yeah, the average. And people were like, yeah, we got tired of pulling like 44 inches. So I hope that helps. And a lot of guys here are just are the bank guys, and like I said, the bank guys, you have to move around. You have to move around, keep moving, because once a spot dries up, this is especially true about the dams, right? Like I said, the dams, the fish seem. I don't know if it actually does this, but it feels like they come to the dam in waves, right? So if you're there on the day the wave gets there, it's excellent fishing. But the guys always harvest them, so a day or two goes by and all the fish are gone. So you have to wait until the next wave. Now, if you have a lot of friends that live in different parts of the state and they're always checking around, then you can actually hop dams and keep catching them every weekend, right? There will never be a weekend where there's no fish activity. There's fish activity every weekend, as long as you have the connections that will tell you. All right. So we seem like we have a pretty good connection of guys that can either tell us or we can figure things out and we can tell them because you scratch my back, I scratch yours. But for the most part right now, we're catch and release guys. So we harvest select harvests. Okay. So unless if we're like we're gonna eat this fish in the next 2 3 days, it's just majority of the time it's catch and release. Well, we might bring one home just to justify the gas to get out there, but everything else we tend to let it go. For the most part, it's just having fun recording it for you guys, just to show different ways of catching catching stripers. Like I said, the stripers it's an addictive species. Once you're on it, it's like nothing else compares. Like the only thing that can compare is the sadness and sorrow from the fishing tournament. Other than that, nothing else comes close. And that's what I've been trying to tell all these tournament guys is like, you know, in a tournament, it's either your first or your last. That's how it feels in a tournament, right? It's either your first or your last. In the world of striper fishing, it feels like everybody wins. Okay? Because the striper puts on a good show every time you hook up on it. All right, coming up on 1 hour and 30. We got 10 minutes, so pretty much gonna end it there in terms of where like why people don't catch stripers. So, to kind of final conclusion, you got to move around, make sure your gear is up to par wherever you are in your striper life. You can say, and you will always catch it. Once you get to the point where you have a boat, and a kayak, and a custom rod, you are good to catch stripers at any given moment. You'll be like, a friend might ask you out of the blue. Like we get this a lot from our cousins and friends. You know, where's a good place to go fish for stripers? And you kind of like, if I was gonna go today, I'd probably go fish the dams. Or, it's mid June, so I'd probably want to take the kayak or the boat out. To the lake, fish the offshore spot. And then it's like late August, and you're kind of like, well, I want to fish topwater now. The topwater bite of the river should be crazy. All right, get that surf rod. Let's go. Right? Then you start opening up a lot of options, and before you know it, you got too much gear, kind of like that, way too much gear, and I don't know. Maybe you'll do a YouTube video about it too. So, all right. So that's pretty much it for the day, guys. Just we're gonna open it up to just more general questions. So fire them off. I'll answer them for the next 5 minutes or so, and then we're gonna call it good. It's been a pretty good night. A lot of good questions coming through, and a lot of returning viewers too, which is I'm pretty pumped because that means I'm doing something right. A lot of guys come and watch a live videos. So the channel's been around, I don't even know, like 8 9 years now, but this is the first year where we've actually done at least one live a week where we're actually giving out, I believe, really good information. So uh, we're going to continue to do this until people lose interest. So uh, on top of that, it's just good to interact with everybody. I know we do a lot of cool videos, and see that a lot. Thumbs ups and a lot of good feedback on the videos too. But it feels like these lives were more like we're more talking. It's not like a one way deal, right? So we got a lot of guys from all walks of life too. We got people watching from like Australia. We got people from Europe. We got people from California. People from Alaska. Uh, Yeah, we got people that are, this is their first year fishing to people that have been there with us tomorrow, today, like those guys. So it's a good community of a lot of information, lots of just okay. We get a lot of questions about okay, what lure should I throw, and I always try to answer that as best as I can. But the thing is, I have too much. I feel like I have too much knowledge in my head, so I can't just recommend a certain lure without knowing what you're comfortable with. What kind of rod do you currently have? What kind of line do you currently have? And then I'll recommend the lure, right? If you come out to me, you're like, I got a CTS rod with $1,000 reel, and I'm thinking, oh, that's easy. You go buy this lure, like custom build it and all this stuff. It might cost you 25, but that's at the level where I'm thinking you want an expectation of that caliber too, right? Or a response on that caliber. But if it's your first time out, I don't want you to go buy a $25 lure because you're one, you probably don't have the equipment to throw it properly, and two, you might lose it, and you might be like, yo, shit, that's the $25 lure I just lost, where I could have easily caught that same fish on that $5 lure, right? So kind of get a gauge for just all the viewers, kind of where they're coming from, their walks of life, their current level of expertise in the world of fishing, and basically, what do you guys want us to do next? Because we've done a lot of things too, kind of mixed matching everything. We got. I feel like we got the striper world dialed. We've got the tournament world fairly dialed. The kayak world is great. We got that worked out already. I feel like, and we're working on the basketball, the boat world right now. For the new guys who don't know, we actually have a pretty good fleet of boats. We have two Hobie Pro Anglers. We have a Pro Hobie Outback, which are high end, higher end kayak. Okay, I'll be honest. It's like a kayak that's designed specifically for fishing. Same with the Feel Free 13.5 that the other guy was talking about. These kayaks are built for fishing. They're definitely not your average kayak. Okay, built for fishing, above average pricing too, by the way. And then we got a very friendly 14-foot John boat. It's beat to crap, and everybody can afford that thing. And then we also have a brand new boat. For the guys that don't know, we also own it's a G3 20-foot boat, aluminum boat. It's got a 150 horsepower engine on the back, which is more than enough for us. Like, I think we'll be pretty happy with a 90, right? But they offered it with a 150, so I was just like, put the 150 on there. So we got the 150 on it. So there's a lot of that. So this year is definitely a lot of the boat stuff, a lot of high tech stuff too. But at the same time, you're gonna see a lot of dams. You're gonna see a lot of just running up the creeks doing kind of redneck stuff. But we really like that stuff. We're really outdoors people, so don't be surprised if you see us fishing for white bass, fishing for stripers, and all of a sudden you got a frog up in there, and we're shooting squirrels, and we're doing a catch and cook, and it's white bass, squirrels, and frogs, frog legs, whatever it might be for that day, right? All right. Can we do a striper show? Does a hybrid show? A hybrid show? Hybrids and stripers behave exactly the same. So if you know stripers, you know hybrids. It's just that the hybrids, when they bite and they run off, they're much more aggressive. They're just like little balls of butter that have a really bad temper. That's all it is. The stripers, they have more. I feel like they have more stamina, but it's like a controlled stamina. The hybrids have like a burst of stamina. Is a do or die. I don't give a crap like mentality, and that's why the hybrids are they're a pretty fun fish. Put it that way. All right, so live chats are awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, I just appreciate all everybody joining in too, because if I'm just talking to myself, it's actually kind of boring. So it's actually pretty good. I know we get a lot of people coming in and out. So the guys actually watch the entire show with me, or are here for the solid hour, hour and a half. Big thumbs to all you guys. and all the guys that are watching later. So we do these live, and then I just publish them straight up, no editing, so everything kind of just flies. And I try not to cuss too much on these lives, so I can just let them fly like that. And I know, everybody that fishes cusses a lot, and we're guilty of that too. But it's kind of how it is. I just want to. The main thing about this channel was we began this channel uh, just recording what we liked, and we just updated to whatever standards you want, basically. But there was many opportunities to say like properly edit all the footage and properly do all this and lights, cameras, and action and everything. But we never went that route because after a while we kind of felt like that really wasn't us. Like we're not film people. So to stage a shot, to do certain things, it got like it got weird really fast. Okay, so that's why when you see us, a lot of times you just see the chest now, because I feel like our group of guys they care more about how I caught it than how the fish looks on camera. So at least that's what I think. So a lot of guys they prefer the raw footage too, compared to all this editing and cool music and everything like that. So if you're cool with that, I'm cool with it too. It does work for me. All right, guys, we're in the last final minutes, so let me know if you have any final questions. If not, we're gonna sign off. All right, no questions. It's a good show. For the guys that are stuck this long, like I said, Tuesdays are kind of all anything goes, but it's mainly related to bass fishing. A lot of it's bass fishing, strategy, tactics, setups, things like that. A lot of we can dive in depth into that too. And Thursdays are reserved for stripers, white bass, that type of stuff. So keep an eye. I'm going to be scheduling the next topics for next week. So if you like the topics, come by. If you just want to hang out, come by. Hang out with us for an hour and a half on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night. All right, guys, sign off.